Senator Lindsey Graham was laid to rest this week in a funeral attended by leaders from across the globe, including Israel's Benjamin Netanyahu and Ukraine's Volodymyr Zelensky, both of whom also met with President Trump in the Oval Office. Graham was a huge supporter of both Israel and Ukraine, providing a counterweight to the rising isolationist wing of the GOP. Who will play that role now that Graham has passed on? One of the president's most controversial supporters wants the job, Laura Loomer, a loyal MAGA activist who has long had the ear of the president. Last week, Loomer made a pilgrimage to Ukraine after years of bashing the country. Loomer says she fell victim to a Russian propaganda campaign and went to see the truth for herself. She also interviewed Zelensky, and the president himself shared clips of the interview on social media.
I've come to realize that I was bamboozled by Russian propaganda, and I came to believe a lot of untrue things about Ukraine. I used to think that this was a country full of Nazis. I'm just trying.
What does Loomer's trip to Ukraine and her desire to carry on Graham's legacy mean for the future of the Republican Party? Here with me now is the woman herself, Laura Loomer. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining me right after this trip. So how did the trip to Ukraine come about, and who funded it?
Thank you. Well, thanks for having me on, Batya. It's a pleasure to join you. For the last year and a half or so, I've become increasingly concerned about a lot of the rhetoric and a lot of the isolationist foreign policy views that have been coming out of some of the top podcasters on the right. And as you know, and you've been very critical of this on your own show, these aren't just podcasters or people with opinions that they're shouting into a microphone. Some of these people enjoy access to the White House. Some of them are friends with the vice president. Some of these people had family members working inside the White House as they were pushing anti-American propaganda, isolationist foreign policy, support for Islamic terrorist organizations like Hamas, and have really been on a full-blown crusade to degrade and absolutely destroy our alliances with longstanding allies to the United States of America, particularly Israel. And I became increasingly alarmed over the last year and a half with the behavior of what I like to call the woke right. Now, you know, your viewers are probably very familiar with who these people are. People like Tucker Carlson, as I call him, people like Candace Owens and Alex Jones. I mean, look, there's a lot of people who all of a sudden, you know, it seems like their views on President Trump have drastically changed, and they went from being ardent supporters of the president to then all of a sudden pushing out what seems like very radical left talking points as it pertains to, you know, the functioning of our country, both domestically and with relations to, you know, foreign affairs. And so I started to really evaluate the content that I was consuming as a conservative in this media ecosystem, not just as somebody with a podcast myself, but also as somebody who, you know, considers myself to be a political operative, in addition to, you know, breaking a lot of stories as an independent journalist, Batya. And I realized, wow, if all of these conservative commentators have been wrong about, you know, Jeffrey Epstein lying, saying that Donald Trump is a pedophile, that he's covering up for Jeffrey Epstein, if they've been wrong about Israel and, you know, pushing out all of their anti-Jewish, and I call it anti-Jewish because it's far transcended just simple criticism or disagreements with Israeli foreign policy, right? This is just pure Jew hatred at this point. If they're now supporting Islamic terrorist organizations and cheering for Iran over the United States as they're murdering U.S. soldiers, what else are these people wrong about? And I realized that, you know, out of the top 5 topics that a lot of these people talk about, the Russia-Ukraine war tops that top 5 list. And I started thinking to myself, wow, it's not a coincidence that RT and Al Jazeera and you look at a lot of these foreign state media entities that exist to prop up these authoritarian regimes in Russia and Qatar have become full-time Clipper accounts for the woke right. And then it made me realize I'm not going to have a proper understanding about what's really happening on the ground in Ukraine and who's right and who's wrong amid this, you know, echo chamber of propaganda, specifically Russian propaganda, unless I travel to Ukraine myself. And so I paid for my travel, and the security was supplemented by some private American donors, and it was not paid for by the government of Ukraine. It was not facilitated by the United States State Department or the Trump administration, despite wild conspiracy theories online. It was not funded by any Ukrainian nationals or the Ukrainian government. but I'm back, and I was out of the country for 11 days, and it was truly a life-changing trip for me. I really have come to understand that everything that I was led to believe while living in this echo chamber, really an echo chamber, very toxic echo chamber that is supported by foreign governments. I mean, we can't deny the influence of Russian propaganda in the GOP and the amount of brainwashing that is taking place on these social media platforms because American social media companies refuse to comply with sanctions law, and they refuse to limit the tweets and the correspondences and the broadcasting of these entities that have been sanctioned.
Now, Laura, you have the president's ear. You spoke to him since you've been back. He was retweeting clips from your interviews. Did you draw this connection for him between the sort of Tucker Carlson isolationist wing and Russia and Iran and pro-Islamism and terrorism and being anti-Trump? Does he understand that network that you're describing to us?
Well, look, Batya, this has been a work in progress. Obviously, the president's very busy, and so I didn't have a very long and drawn-out conversation with him about this. He knew that I went to Ukraine. I told him that I interviewed President Zelensky. He complimented me on my interview. The president was very gracious to take my calls. I spoke to him twice when I was in Ukraine, and he shared the interview that I conducted. And as you said in your intro, he shared several clips, including the full link to the interview, and I'm grateful for that. It's not a secret. I've admitted this publicly. I prepared a dossier for the website, for the White House several months ago. Really, over the last year, I've prepared several very detailed reports on some of these woke-like personalities and the propaganda and the anti-Trump rhetoric that they have been pushing out to their audiences. And unfortunately, because of their foreign propaganda and their incessant Trump hatred and their obsession with blaming Jews and blaming all of the world's issues on Donald Trump and Israel, so many people have been radicalized in the GOP. And so I've really made it a point to stress this to the White House. I'm proud that, this resulted in President Trump finally condemning Tucker Carlson. I don't want to take credit for anything that Donald Trump has done because he's his own individual and he thinks for himself and he makes his own decisions. But I know that I am the person who informed the president of everything that Tucker Carlson and Megyn and Candace Owens and Alex Jones were saying about him. And despite preparing a lot of these reports for the White House, it's my understanding a lot of this information was not given to him or explained to him in full, which is alarming because you have to ask yourself who surrounding the president is serving as a gatekeeper for the woke right.
A very important question. I'm always very moved when people change their mind publicly. It's something I do a lot with new information. You seem very humbled by the experience that you had, as you said, being bamboozled by Russia. I wonder if it's led you to rethink some of your other beliefs, other past statements. I remember in 2024, you said something that made me almost not vote for Donald Trump because I knew that you were close with him. You said something about if Kamala Harris wins the election, the White House will smell like curry. And I felt very offended by that and spoke out against it. I'm wondering, do you regret that kind of pugilism now that you're seeing yourself in a different kind of a role vis-a-vis the White House and foreign policy? What's your take on that?
I don't regret anything that I said about Kamala Harris. I think that a lot of these Democrats, they like to dish it out, but they can't take it. And, they've made plenty of remarks about Donald Trump and conservatives. And it was a joke. It was making fun of the fact that Kamala Harris was campaigning at a radical left spice shop on the campaign trail. And I had, the Democrats love to attack, but they don't ever like to provide the context or the backstory for what they're condemning people for. And she pretended like she had an organic campaign event at a spice shop in Pennsylvania, and the reality is that the people who were operating the spice shop had a child who was working on Kamala Harris's campaign, and I exposed it. And so, I think that it was a funny jab at the fact that she made these very ridiculous cooking comparisons. And, I'm not in the business of apologizing to the left. These are people who have embraced assassination culture. These are people who have embraced an Islamic communist takeover of America. And their political positions and their daily speech and rhetoric and the direction that they're taking our country in is far more destructive, far more violent, and far more negative for the culture and really just the political environment of our country than anything that has ever come out of my mouth or anything that I've ever, tweeted on X.
You sometimes tweet that you're feeling despondent, that the woke Reich, as you call them, are winning. Sometimes you seem more hopeful.
Yeah.
Obviously, you have a big role in this schism on the right. Who's winning right now?
Well, look, I think that Trump's base has the ability to. The woke right wants people to think that they're winning, but again, a lot of this is amplified by these foreign networks on social media, and all of this could easily be put to rest if they started to enforce compliance within the Trump administration. What do I mean by enforcing compliance? Well, start making it very clear that there's going to be a zero tolerance policy in Trump's inner circle for anybody who works in his administration having these open associations or friendships with members of the woke right. I think everybody knows who I'm talking about, right? I don't think I need to elaborate. I've had conversations about this both privately and publicly, and I get along very well with the Vice President of the United States, but I think his biggest political liability and the biggest detriment to social cohesion within the MAGA movement and cohesion within the GOP as we head into these perilous midterm elections is making sure that you don't have this albatross around the party's neck. And I'm talking about Tucker Carlson. I think that J.D. Vance has a bright political future, but he, is allowing his friendship with Tucker Carlson to drag him down. And we need to have moral clarity, and we need to reject certain people from our party who are, hell-bent on destroying what it means to be an American and what it means to be a member of the MAGA movement. And so that's one thing. I also think that with the passing of the Russia and Iran sanctions bill, when they do take a vote on this, Batya, in the House, they need to make sure that they send letters to all the social media companies and force compliance. Get rid of the Iranian propaganda accounts that are making assassination Lego videos. Make it so that the social media companies have to put tweet advisories on all of the content coming out of Russian and Iranian state media, because it's Russian, Iranian, Turkish, and Qatari, right? I know the GOP loves to say the Qataris are their new best buddies. They're not, right? They're not. They are working alongside these foreign adversaries to brainwash GOP voters and to create a lot of this chaos in America. They need to start enforcing the law. I saw that some of the senators even pressed the State Department on this yesterday during a hearing, and they were grilling some of the members of the Trump State Department about why they're not being as forceful when it comes to, implementing these sanctions. And if we are not going to give Patriot missiles to Ukraine, I understand that we have a shortage of them ourselves. If we're not going to arm our allies in defeating these adversaries that are openly supporting and encouraging the killing of American citizens and promoting the assassination of our president and his most loyal supporters, myself included, then we need to make sure that we use these economic sanctions and the power of legal enforcement on American social media companies that are required to abide by U.S. law. And you don't get to say that you're a free speech absolutist when it comes to sanctions enforcement. You have to enforce the law. And if a state-sponsored media entity is promoting violence and they are pushing propaganda, you have an obligation as the head of that American company, whether it's a news channel or a social media company, to comply with U.S. law. And I don't think a lot of that is happening because we don't really have a lot of people in this administration, as much as I support the Trump administration, who want to be enforcers, right? Like, people need to start being a little bit more authoritarian with enforcing U.S. law and U.S. code. You don't need to be a full-blown dictator in the sense, but laws are laws and laws are meant to be followed. Laws are meant to be complied with. And it seems like there's a lot of this, I don't want to force compliance among my friends, right? Because a lot of people who are in the position to enforce these rules or enforce compliance, right? They're all friends with each other. And that's not what we voted for.
One of the things that drives me crazy is when people start insisting that the Chinese Communist Party somehow has First Amendment rights that need to be protected. It's like, no, those are for American citizens. All right, last question in the minute we have left. 2028. The succession fight is already on, whether people want to admit it on the right or not. tell us what you're seeing, what you predict, what you want to happen, and what you think will happen.
Well, look, I think that there's obviously a fight to define what a post-Trump GOP is going to look like. You see people already trying to run, presidential campaigns or proxy campaigns for the people who they think are entitled, right, to carry on the mantle. But I think it's disrespectful, first of all, to the president, because we are in the midterms. We haven't push through the midterms. And these midterms are going to determine whether or not Donald Trump is, successful in his second term or whether he's a lame duck president. And we need everybody in the GOP, especially everybody who works in the cabinet, to be 100% focused on making sure that the GOP delivers a win in 2026, because we're not going to have GOP wins in 2028 if our entire country is taken over by this Islamic communist cult, right, that the Democrat Party has allowed itself to be defined by. And it was remarkable listening to the panelists on your previous segment talk about this, because most of those people on the panel were Democrat, I think with the exception of one person who seemed conservative. And I think even the Democrats are starting to get fatigued with this radical left communist Islamic takeover of their party and this kowtowing to just extreme ideologies. I mean, look, I understand that a lot of these Democrats hate Donald Trump more than they love America, but it's really time for the left and the right to come together on things that make us all American. And there was a point in time, especially after 9/11, Batya, where all Americans were united against the threat of Islamic terrorism.
I'm so grateful to you for coming on and sharing your perspective. Thank you so much.